is Monica. I am an OET and IELTS trainer, and in this video today, we are going to look at reading extracts from official OET papers and learn vocabulary words that we often don't take notice of. Now, these vocabulary words could be simple words that you don't know the meaning of, or these could be collocations or even idioms. Remember, collocations and idioms are those words which are easily understandable and very natural to the native English speaker, but not as easily understandable for us non-native speakers. So these vocabulary words we are going to learn with the help of simple examples and explanations. We're also going to look at how these words can also be used in your OET writing and speaking. Now, the big question is this video going to be helpful for you? Should you watch this video? Well, in that case, please understand this video is going to be helpful for those students whose vocabulary is not the best, due to which they have a hard time understanding the meaning of paragraphs. And remember, if you misunderstand the meaning of your paragraph, no method in the book can actually help you find the right answer then. And this is why I'm going to keep this video short for your benefit and your attention span, but more such videos are going to follow. This video is also a helpful resource for those students who don't have the time themselves to look at reading extracts and write the word and meaning and use it in different examples. So I hope you find this video helpful today. Come as no surprise is actually an idiomatic expression which we use when we want to say that it is not surprising to me. It is not something that I was not expecting. It is something rather predictable that was easily foreseeable because that was very obvious as well. So, for example, when I say that given his track record of poor time management, it came as no surprise when he missed the deadline. I mean to say that because of his already established poor time management habits, it was not surprising to me that he actually missed the deadline because he has done so in the past as well, because he has shown that with his poor time management skills in the past as well, which is why it was not surprising to me. Similarly, it should come as no surprise that he won the race. I mean, he has been training for months. So because he has been training for it for a long time, it should not come as something surprising or unexpected for anybody. But students often misunderstand this phrase because it contains the word surprise in it. So that's why you should know come as no surprise means not surprising, not expected, not unexpected, and that it is very, very, very predictable, very easily foreseeable. Similarly, when we say in the paragraph that it should come as no surprise that the caffeine keeps us awake, that means they must have had some reasons before which made it obvious to them to believe that caffeine is actually able to keep them awake at night or any time of the day. So, come as no surprise is only emphasizing that part, that it is not surprising, it is not unexpected. We were already expecting this information. Now, this idiomatic expression is particularly helpful in reading articles when you get a question or a statement that says, or that asks about what did the researchers find surprising about the results study. So it becomes clear that this was definitely not something that they found surprising. And as a result, if any answer option contains this information, that answer option would become automatically incorrect. Just because the word surprise is there in a phrase does not mean that it actually means surprising. Now, I'm sure that you all are aware of the word magnifying glass, or that some of you may have already used it in your practice. But let me tell you, why magnifying glass is actually used to make something appear larger than it already is. It may not always be the case with the word magnify. It can have the meaning of saying, making something appear larger, but it can also be used when we want to highlight the importance of something. And when I say highlight the importance of something, it actually depends on the kind of sentence you are using. Sometimes you highlight the importance of something by saying it has a strong effect. Sometimes you highlight the importance of something by saying that it is widely used or it is very common, something like that, right? So, depending on the sentence, you should try to understand the meaning of this particular verb. For example, the very first sentence here says, the media tends to magnify small issues. Here, magnify does not mean appear larger, but rather magnify means that the media actually has this tendency to focus on small issues or to magnify or to make them seem more important than they actually are. Similarly, the next sentence says that the artist used bold colors to magnify the emotion conveyed in the painting, which means that the artist was using bold colors so that he could focus or he could highlight the emotions conveyed in the painting. And the last example now, it says that the sudden increase in prices magnified the financial difficulties faced by low income families. It means that the sudden surge in prices which happened actually highlighted the financial difficulties. That means the difficulties were already there, but now it focused on that. It actually pressed on that more now that the in, cost has increased in some prices, right? Similarly, in the paragraph, if you see, they say that it was later discovered that concentrations of adenosine receptors magnify the molecule's sleep inducing effect. Here, we mean to say that the effect of the sleep inducing molecules is actually very, very strong due to the concentrations of adenosine receptors. So, in other words, the concentration of adenosine receptors, concentration means how they are actually put in different areas in your brain. So, the concentration of adenosine receptors actually make the molecule sleep inducing effect even more. It highlights it even more by making it even more stronger. So that's how the word magnify, the verb magnify, is being used here in this paragraph. Now, I'm pretty sure that all of you must already know the meaning of the word clever, but when we use the word clever as an adverb, that means we are changing how we see this term, because adverb is used to give more information about the verb, the action word. How an action is being done is actually defined by the adverb here. So when I say that the brain has cleverly designed a two-way or a two-stage defense against something, I am saying that yes, the brain has designed a two-stage defense against something, but how the brain has designed it? Well, that is very clever. I am impressed by it. So, again, why is it important for me to focus on not just this adverb in just this particular paragraph, but it's important for me to focus on adverbs in general when they're used in any written article, because adverbs and adjectives actually help you understand about the feelings that the author or the writer of that sentence, that paragraph has about that particular information, about that particular argument. Because the word cleverly here actually tells me that the writer or the author here is actually very impressed with this person, or with this, is very impressed with the brain here, not the person, because the brain has designed this two-stage defense against something. But remember, it will always depend on the kind of sentence we are using and how we are using that adverb in that sentence for us to understand how the author feels about these emotions. Now, for example, here we have multiple examples, and before these examples start, I've highlighted in bold inventiveness, deception, problem solving skills, manipulation skills, craftsmanship, and strategic thinking. Because based on how the word cleverly has been used in all of these different sentences, all of these different skills are being highlighted. For example, if the magician is cleverly distracting the audience's attention while performing his trick, then he is showing deception because he is decepting his audience. He is making a fool out of them. But then, if he is cleverly solving the puzzle by thinking outside the box, so thinking outside the box is always considered a good thing, right? So that means this person is showing how easily they can invent things, which is considered a good thing. So the reader or the author here is actually impressed by the inventiveness of this person. Similarly, when I am using the sentence, she cleverly devised a plan to overcome the obstacle. So, overcoming an obstacle is a good thing. So, she clearly devised a plan. How she devised it? Cleverly. Not clearly, I'm sorry about that, but cleverly she devised a plan. So, that means I'm impressed by her problem solving skills. But let me again use it to show something negative. In the next sentence, when I say the politician cleverly framed his argument to appeal to a broader audience, the word framed is usually used in a negative connotation because you must have heard in murder trials that I was framed, I did not commit this murder, he was framed, all of that, right? So I did not actually do it. So frame here is said to actually explain that the politician said the sentence or said the argument in such a way that it would appeal to a broader audience. But because the intention of the politician was not good here, it was to manipulate, it was to fool his audience, then here the word cleverly actually highlights the manipulation skills of this politician. So I'm not impressed by it, no, but rather the manipulation skills are highlighted by how the word cleverly is used in this sentence. Remember, the word cleverly or any adverb would always actually give us more information about either the verb or another adjective. But you have to understand what is being discussed in that particular statement for you to understand whether we are impressed by it or whether we are impressed by something negative or something positive. A two-stage defense is actually a very common collocation which is used to describe that a specific defense strategy or system has more than one stage, and here specifically it has two stages. A three-stage defense would mean it has three stages. So here, the collocation itself is not as important. Yes, it can be used in your reading articles when we are talking about the defense system of our body against certain disease and conditions. Just like here in the paragraph, they have mentioned that the brain has designed what kind of defense to deal with the consequences of sleep loss. Well, it has defined a two-stage defense. That means there are two phases or two stages which involve that defense. But it's not just important because of the word defense. Well, it is also important from a grammatical perspective because the way this collocation has been used, in the same way, this collocation, not just this collocation, but other collocations are also used in your OET case notes, OET letters, and in your OET speaking as well. Some examples you can see below would say a 2-month history of, or a 4-year-old, or a mother-in-law. Let me clarify exactly why it is important for you to understand this grammatical concept. Well, it is important because while you may have not heard of it before, but it is called a compound adjective. So far, you've heard me speak in my previous videos that adjectives are words or phrases which actually give more information about a certain noun. Well, there are kinds of adjectives as well, and this one is called compound adjective. What makes it a compound adjective is that the words which are used in this adjective are connected with a hyphen together. And when a word is connected with a hyphen together, no matter how many words they are, two, three, or four, they all combine together to become one word. So when you see a 2 month history of this 2 month, in a written concept is actually one word because it is connected with that hyphen. Now, it does not mean that you can just use the hyphen wherever you would like, but especially when you want to give more information about, let's say, for example, here I want to give more information about the history of a disease or condition, right? So I want to mention that it has been going on for 2 months now. So I will use a 2 month history of something. So that becomes a common collocation that I use in my OET writing a lot. Similarly, when I talk about the age of a patient in the letters as well, this is a very common mistake I encounter. A 4 year old, for example, because you're using article A and you're giving information about the age of the person, 4-year-old. Now, who is 4 year old? Patient, accountant, diabetic, who is it exactly, right? That's what we are giving information about. So there are a few examples that you can see. These kinds of examples can be very commonly seen in your OET letters. So understand them, study them. If you have any questions about them, if you want to see more examples about them, feel free to comment below the video. So she presented with a 2 day history of dizziness. That means when she came to us, she was having the episodes of dizziness 2 day prior. So she was having that for 2 days when she came to me. She is a 21-year-old accountant. So, yes, when I mention the age of a patient, I can use the number digit 21, but it is usually preferred that when we talk about the history of disease or conditions, we use proper spelling like TWO rather than writing 21. But it does not mean at all that if I used 2-day history, then that would be incorrect or that OET would cut your marks. No, it's just a bit more professional if you use it when you spell the word out. Similarly, the next example shows he complained of what? A 2 month history of dizziness. That means he was having dizziness for 2 months when he came to me. And it clarifies that he was having dizziness for the last 2 months when he came to me. So you do not need to specify prior 2 months, preceding 2 months, for the last 2 months. So it also saves a lot of space and a lot of words in your sentence as well when you use this term. So he complained of a 2 month history of dizziness and a 4 day history of nausea. So, yes, definitely you can use it to talk about the history of symptoms or disease conditions, and you can combine them together in one sentence. And no, OET will not cut your marks for repetition of this particular phrase because it is an adjective that you are using, and that adjective type is same. Yes, you are using compound adjective again and again. But my dear, you're using it not because you want to, but because it is actually required here. And OET does not cut your marks for something that is required. OET cuts your marks when something is unnecessary and you're using it just for the sake of it. So I hope you have understood how to use a compound adjective. If there are any questions, post them in the comments below. So the word underlie is actually a verb. Now, the verb itself is not commonly used in the articles that you're going to read or the letters that you're going to write, but the adjective underlying, which is another form of it. Now, that adjective is going to be very common for you to see in your OET letters. It's going to be common in your OET speaking as well. So let's understand how we can use this in both these areas. But before that, let's see the meaning. Now, the verb underlie, it means that it is the cause of something, the basis or foundation of something. With a very simple example, they say that poor communication skills may underlie many understandings. So it means that poor communication skills may be the basis of many misunderstandings, may be the reason behind many misunderstandings, may be the causes of many misunderstandings, or maybe the foundation of many misunderstandings. Similarly, healthy eating habits underlie physical well-being. That means healthy eating habits are the basis of physical well-being. So, healthy well-being is formed by healthy eating habits. But when I say underlying, I'm using it as an adjective. And this adjective describes a noun that is fundamental, basic, or forming the basis of something else. So it's going to sound very technical, but let's see a few collocations which are actually used in your OET a lot. So underlying risk factors, underlying cause, underlying condition. I'm pretty sure that you understand the meaning of all of these. And these are very commonly used. Again, you can see here the examples would say that smoking and obesity are common underlying causes, are common underlying risk factors for cardiovascular diseases. So that means for cardiovascular disease, smoking and obesity basically form the foundation. These are the risk factors which make it more likely for you to have cardiovascular disease. Similarly, insulin resistance is the underlying cause of type 2 diabetes. So it is the underlying factor, it is the underlying forming basis of type 2 diabetes. Now, how it is used in your OET speaking is sometimes when you might be talking to a patient, they might be asking you questions. Why do I need to get these tests done? So, as a healthcare professional, you'll tell them, well, we are ordering more tests to rule out any underlying causes or diseases. So, it's not to scare them, but to help clarify that the doctor might order some other test or some more test to rule out any underlying causes. So, just to be on the safe side, we are going to conduct more tests to rule out any underlying causes. It does not necessarily mean that you have any medical condition, but it just means that you can have many underlying causes that we are going to try and rule out. So that's how you can use it in both your OET writing and in your OET speaking. Now, I like the word deficit a lot, not because it talks about something that I love, but rather the word deficit actually has the meaning of shortcomings or weakness in something. But the reason why I like this word a lot is because once I understand the meaning of deficit, I can understand the meaning of so many collocations which are formed using the word deficit. Just in the paragraph as well, you can see that they have used cognitive deficits. So that becomes a collocation. That means that, when someone has trouble with thinking, remembering, or solving problems, they're having cognitive deficits because cognition actually relates to your ability to think, process information, your ability to recall or remember information. So if I'm saying that there is some weakness in that ability, I'm saying that you have cognitive deficit. So for example, here, the student's deficits, when I'm not using it with a collocation, the student's deficits or shortcomings or weaknesses in maths or mathematics made it difficult for him to understand the concepts. So because of his shortcomings in maths, it made it difficult for him to understand the concepts. Now, when you are reading articles, especially related to cognition or related to brain or shortcomings, it's very common for you to encounter so many different collocations using the word deficit. Some of these collocations I've listed, as you can see on the left-hand side. Here, attention deficits means that you are having difficulty in paying attention or focusing on something. This term can be very commonly used in your letter writing as well. When you have a patient who is having trouble concentrating on things or on their job. Similarly, memory deficits specifically relates to issues with the remembering or recalling information or events or experiences of your life. It's very common when you are getting to find out the onset of Alzheimer's disease in your patients. Speech deficits are very common in patients with speech difficulties. So basically having issues in speaking clearly or communicating clearly, often they are happening due to physical or cognitive impairments. So they are the result of cognitive impairments. We have already done the word impairment, so you should be aware of it. Now, learning deficit is that when you're having difficulty in learning new information, acquiring new information, or skill set, which is associated with learning disabilities as well. Similarly, nutritional deficits relate to poor diet. Not really poor diet, but rather nutritional deficits mean that you have shortcoming or weakness when it comes to nutrition. So that means you may not probably have enough nutrition. So they have given us an example here. They say that poor diet can lead to nutritional deficits, causing health problems such as vitamin deficiency. So if you have a poor diet, it will probably lead to nutritional deficit because it doesn't have a lot of good nutritions. Now, growth deficit clearly talks about issues or impairments related to growth. So, when you have delayed growth or impairments in your physical growth or physical development, such as stunned height or weight, we use growth deficit to define it. Make sure you're aware of the meaning of all of these different collocations because they'll be very, very commonly used in your reading articles, which are related to your brain, which are related to different kinds of deficits. So when we infuse something, we introduce something else into something else. We introduce or add something, one thing into another thing. So when we use it as a verb, for example, the chef is infusing the soup with herbs to give it more flavor. So that means the chef is actually introducing herbs into the soup so that it can have more flavor. When I look at the sentence here in the paragraph, it says that McCarley and colleagues found that infusing adnisone into rat's basal forebrain, it means that introducing or adding adnisone into rat's basal forebrain impaired their performance on an attention test. You already know the meaning of impaired from the very first vocabulary video. It means that by adding or introducing adnisone into rat's basal forebrain, they found that it impaired or it weakened their performance, the rat's performance on an attention test. So when you add or infuse adnisone levels in a rat's forebrain, you weaken their performance and on an attention test, basically. One more time, we are going to look at the word impaired. The reason why, even though we have done it in vocabulary video number 1, we are going to do it again in the video number 3, is because I want you to get used to this word. Number 2, I want you to see how many times this word is being used actually in your reading articles so that you get it in your head permanently. So impaired is used not necessarily as an adjective everywhere, but it can also be used as a verb as well. Now here, it has been used as a verb when I say that it impaired their performance. So it weakened their performance. I'm using it as an action word, but it can very well be used as an adjective such as impaired vision, impaired judgment, impaired functioning of the equipment, right? So please understand that you will be able to identify how it is being used depending on the context of the sentence. So first example here says, his impaired vision made it difficult for him to read small print. So because of his impaired vision or weakened vision, that means he has issues with his vision, with his eyes, it made it difficult for him to read small print. Similarly, the medication can cause. So the cause, can cause is actually a verb here. Can cause what? Well, it can cause impaired judgment. So that means it can cause weakness in your judgment and in your coordination as well. So it can weaken those areas, those skill areas for you. So I hope you remember the meaning of the word impaired and how it can be used in your sentences.